Hello, you're welcome to our lecture on chordates. Today's lecture will be on the class Amphibia, and we're going to look at the introductory part of this class. In the process of our discussion, we'll also look at the anatomy and physiology of amphibians, the external anatomy of the amphibians. Now, what are amphibians? Amphibians are ectothermic or poikilothermic or cold-blooded tetrapod vertebrates of the class Amphibia that are distinguished by their ability to exploit both aquatic and terrestrial habitats. What does it mean for an organism to be ectothermic or poikilothermic? Or another word for it is being cold-blooded. It means that the amphibians are incapable of regulating their internal temperature. The temperature of their internal environment of their body depends on the temperature of the surrounding. And these organisms are said to be amphibians because they have the ability to live both in aquatic and terrestrial habitats. Aquatic habitat means water. They are able to live in water and on land, which is the terrestrial habitat. So that's the major reason why they are referred to as amphibians. The amphibians include frogs and toads, salamanders and newts, and as well as the caecilians. Now, the caecilians are basically limbless tropical amphibians that looks like an earthworm. They have small or no eyes and burrows in the soil. The name amphibian is derived from the Greek word amphibios, which means living a double life. And that's basically because they live both on land and in water. The amphibians live both on land and in water, and that's the reason why that name is given to them, amphibians. Now I want to look at other features, the general characteristics of the amphibians. The general characteristics of the amphibians. One of the general characteristics of the amphibians is that the three orders of amphibians have been united in one class by the feature unique to them among all tetrapods. They lay amniotic eggs. All amphibians have this very distinctive feature. Their eggs do not have an amnion. They lay amniotic eggs. Now, what's an amnion? An amnion is a double membrane that's found in the eggs of some organisms that are called amniotes, like the reptiles, birds, and mammals, that enables the embryo to survive on land. Okay. Now, in the case of the amphibians, the eggs do not have amnion. That's why they are called anamniotic, not non-amniotic eggs. And as such, they would have to lay their eggs in water. That's why amphibians breed in water. And when they hatch, the tadpoles live in the water and eventually become adults that now live amphibious lives. The second characteristic of the amphibians is that they possess glandular skin that lacks epidermal structures such as hair or feathers. They possess glandular skin that lacks epidermal structures such as hair or feathers. So their skin does not have epidermal structures. They even lack scales that are found in fishes and reptiles. They use their skin as secondary respiratory surface, and some small terrestrial salamanders and frogs lack lungs and rely entirely upon their skin. So their skin is used for secondary respiration, and this use of the skin for respiration is called cutaneous respiration. So most amphibians exhibit cutaneous respiration. The fourth characteristic of the amphibians is that the young generally undergo metamorphosis from larva with gills to an adult air-breathing form with lungs. They undergo metamorphosis. Metamorphosis basically refers to a series of marked changes that occur in an organism. So changes in form from one form to another, from the juvenile larval stage to an adult form. The adult form make use of gills, and the juveniles of the amphibians make use of gills for respiration, while the adults make use of lungs for breathing of atmospheric air. The adults usually possess two lungs for respiration. The adult amphibians usually use two lungs for respiration. The sixth distinctive feature or characteristic of the amphibians is that they possess a three-chambered heart. The amphibians possess a three-chambered heart. They live a biphasal lifestyle common to most groups, in which aquatic larvae metamorphoses into adult land-dwelling larvae. They live a biphasal life. The larval stage lives in water, while the adults are land dwellers, or they live both on land and in water. Most amphibians are tetrapods. That is, they have four legs, a pair of forelimbs and a pair of hind limbs. Though there are some that are exception to this. Amphibians are ectothermic or cold-blooded or poikilothermic. They are unable to regulate their internal temperatures, and their temperatures depend on the temperatures of the surrounding environment. Their temperatures depend on the temperature of the surrounding environment. The 10th distinctive feature is that amphibians possess clawless 4-digit toes and 5-digit hind limbs. They possess clawless. Their digits do not have claws, and their forelimbs are 4 digits, while their hind limbs have 5 digits. And the hind limbs are usually webbed in some species, such as frogs. There are some that are limbless, like the caecilians. The caecilians are actually limbless. They are superficially similar to reptiles, but along with mammals and birds, reptiles are amniotes. Amniotes are vertebrates that developed in embryo sac that's called the amnio. And they do not possess the amniotes. The reptiles, birds, and mammals do not possess or do not require water bodies in which to breathe. So the amphibians resemble the mammals, but the major distinction between the mammals and the amphibians is that they are amniotes. They are not amniotes. And the fact that they have other distinctive features. And reptiles have scales in their skins, while amphibians do not. And reptiles have claws in their digits, while amphibians do not. And reptiles are mainly either land or water dwellers. So there are some amphibious reptiles like the crocodiles that live both on land and in water. Now I want to look at the anatomy and physiology of amphibians. Anatomy and physiology of amphibians. First, we'll look at the external anatomy of amphibians, the external appearance. One general external feature of all amphibians is that they all possess glandular skin that lacks epidermal structures such as hair or feathers, and their skins are always moist. The skins of amphibians are always moist. Caecilians are unique among amphibians in having mineralized dermal scales embedded in the dermis between the furrows and the skin. The caecilians are unique. They have mineralized dermal scales. So they are unique in this feature. They have scales in their skins. In most amphibians, there are 4 digits on the forefoot and 5 on the hindfoot, but no claws, though some amphibians vary in this regard. So amphibians have 4-digit forelimbs and 5-digit hind limbs, but the limbs and the toes do not have claws. They lack claws, unlike those of reptiles that have claws. In frogs, the hind legs are larger than the forelegs, especially so in those species that principally move by jumping or swimming. And the walkers or runners, the hind limbs are not so long, and the burrowers mostly have short limbs and broad bodies. Okay, the frogs and toads have longer hind limbs, larger hind limbs, the frogs particularly. But there are some species like the salamanders that have both the hind limbs and the have equal hind limbs and forelimbs. The feet have adaptations for the way of life, with webbing between the toes for swimming, broad adhesive toe pads for climbing, and keratinized tubercles on the hind feet for digging. Now there are some adaptations. Okay, the feet have webs in between them, the toes of the feet, and that enables them to swim on land. That's how to swim in the water. And some of them have broad adhesive toe pads for climbing, particularly the tree frogs. And there are some that are burrowers, they have keratinized tubercles on the hind feet that enable them to dig into the soil. Now here is a picture of a toad showing the gross external anatomy. Here we have the bulging eyes. They have bulging eyes, particularly those in the order Apodia have bulging eyes, the nostrils, the mouth. The tympanic membrane, which is for hearing, is like a patch of skin on the surface. It's not having a hole inside towards the interior, and they have webbed digits. These are the forelimbs, okay, and then the hind limbs. And the forelimbs have 4 digits. The hind limbs don't have 5 digits. Now let's say it's a tree frog. Then we also have some other distinctive features that are found in other groups. The salamanders have fewer digits. In most salamanders, the limbs are short and more or less the same length and project at right angles from the body. And these are salamanders that superficially look like the reptiles. Now, what's the distinction between this salamander and the lizard or other reptiles? Like we said before, they have 4-digit toes that do not have claws. Reptiles have 5-digit toes that have claws. Okay, reptiles have 5-digit toes and they have claws. Their bodies are usually moist, while reptiles usually have and do not have scales, while reptiles have scaly skins, and usually the terrestrial ones have dry skins. Okay, and one other feature is that these salamanders are basically amphibious, living both on land and in water. The skin is used for respiration as a supplementary respiratory organ. There are some other amphibians that have some distinctive features, like the saurians. They are usually aquatic salamanders with stumpy forelimbs, and no hind limbs. They have very small, stumpy forelimbs. The forelimbs are very stumpy, but they do not have hind limbs. These are some unique amphibians. Then we also have the amphibians, which are eel-like in appearance with tiny stubby legs. These are amphibians. They are also amphibians. Okay, they have tiny stubby legs, distinct from the general amphibians we used to know. The caecilians are limbless. These are the limbless caecilians. They are found even in Africa, even in Nigeria, in Bayelsa State, and Yenegua. I've seen several of them. Thanks a lot for watching. Our next video will be on the internal anatomy and physiology of the amphibians. So continue to watch our videos on this series of courses. Thanks.